Hi, everybody. Hello, everyone. Good morning to you. Hi, everybody. Well, good morning to you all. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rene, and I work with Children's Services at the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. And today I'm really excited because our library is celebrating World Read Aloud Day. And World Read Aloud Day is a really special day where millions of people, readers, writers, storytellers, and story listeners just like you, all gather in communities all across the world to celebrate the joy and the power of stories and sharing our favorite stories with one another. So today I have a very special story that I would like to share with you. The story that I'm going to be reading is called The Spiffiest Giant in Town. And this book was written by Julia Donaldson, and the illustrations are by Alex Scheffler. Now, before we start to share our book today, I just want to give a quick tip for you grown-ups out there who are listening. Because at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, we believe in active reading. And that means instead of just reading a book to your child, we hope that you will read a book with your child. And one of the things that you can do, or one of the ways you can do that, is to ask lots and lots of questions as you read. And so especially open-ended questions, questions that may not have a right or wrong answer, that you can't just answer with a yes or a no. And asking those questions and having a conversation with your child as you read will actually improve language and build their vocabulary, and it increases comprehension, their understanding of what they read. So let's begin our book today. So our book is called The Spiffiest Giant in Town, and it was written by Julia Donaldson, and Alex Scheffler did the illustrations. And I chose this book today because I really love this author. You might know her as the author of The Gruffalo or Room on the Broom. Those are some of her other books. And she often works with Alex Scheffler as the illustrator who does the drawings. And I really love the pictures in this book too. I want you to look for all those little details in the illustrations as we read. Okay, here we go. The Spiffiest Giant in Town by Julia Donaldson, with pictures by Alex Scheffler. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched-up gown. "I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town," he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of spiffy clothes. Now, friends, what do you think the word spiffy means? That's not a word that we use in everyday conversation. What do you think it means this time? Okay, so this might be a new vocabulary word for you. Spiffy means that they're nice-looking clothes. He's going to look pretty sharp when he's all dressed in his new clothes. So George bought a spiffy shirt, a spiffy pair of pants, a spiffy belt, a spiffy striped tie, some spiffy socks with diamonds on the sides, and a pair of spiffy, shiny shoes. "Now I'm the spiffiest giant in town," he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the sidewalk stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. Now look, did you recognize George? There's George, and he does look pretty nice in his new clothes. And look, "Oh, it's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf." "Well, cheer up," said George, and he took off his striped tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said, as he wound it round and around the giraffe's neck. "It made a wonderful scarf. What do you think?" "Thank you," said the giraffe. George strode towards home, and he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down. I'm the spiffiest giant in town." George came to a river, and on a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "Oh, what's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Well, cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat, and it made a magnificent sail. Thank you, said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a tiny, ruined house. Oh no. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice, and they were all squeaking, squeak, 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 squeak. Well, what's the matter? Asked George. It's our house, squeaked the mother mouse. It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new home. Cheer up, said George, as he took off one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway, he said, as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. Thank you, they squeaked. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Now, you've seen what George has done so far for the other animals. Do you have an idea what George might give to the fox? Okay, let's turn the page and see. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his socks with the diamonds on the sides. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said, as the fox snuggled into it. It made a very fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a big, squishy bog, and beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. Oh! What's the matter? Asked George. It's this bog, said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his spiffy new belt. It was squeezing my tummy anyway, he said, as he laid it down over the bog, and it made an excellent path. Thank you, said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. Now, friends, we have sang this a few times already, so I wonder if you remember it and can sing along with me. Can we give it a try? Here we go. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. But my pants are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery, and not at all spiffy. He stood on one foot and he thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh, no, cried George. He sank down onto the sidewalk and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. And then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. And George took a closer look. "My gown!" he yelled. "Oh, my dear old gown and sandals." George put them on, and they felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the coziest giant in town," he cried, and then he danced back home along the road. Outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said. "Open it." George untied the ribbon, and inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. And George put the crown on his head, and he opened up the card. All right, let's read the card. Inside it said, "You gave your scarf to a cold giraffe, your shirts on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town." The end. All right, everybody. That was The Spiffiest Giant in Town. And I shared with you that this is one of my favorite books, not only because I love this author and illustrator, and I love the illustrations in this book, but it's also one of my favorite stories about kindness and generosity and sharing. And I hope you enjoyed that book as much as I did. So now I hope that you will continue our World Read Aloud Day celebration with us by reading books and sharing stories with others. And we would love to know, what are your favorite books that you are sharing for this special celebration day? Now, we've put a link over in the comments section, and if you click on that link and you fill out that form and tell us about the books you are sharing today, well, we will enter you in a drawing to win a very special prize. Check it out. We have these adorable bags, these little book bags, filled with books, just ready to give away to you. So grown-ups, go ahead and click on that link, fill out that form, tell us what books that you are sharing for World Read Aloud Day, and we'll put you in the drawing. We are giving away 10 of these bags today, and winners will pick them up at one of our library locations that's close to you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for World Read Aloud today with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. I am so glad you were here, and I look forward for all of the book recommendations that you are going to give us for the rest of our celebration day. Bye, everyone.